The salivary glands produce saliva, which helps to lubricate food before swallowing and contains digestive enzymes. In this photo, number 1 is the parotid gland, number 2 is the submandibular gland, and number 3 is the sublingual gland. In this image, number 1 is the liver, and the gallbladder is number 2 right underneath. Number 3 is the stomach, and number 4 is the pancreas tucked right behind the stomach. Number 5 is the spleen, and number 6 is the duodenum, the first part of the small intestine. Number 7 is the transverse colon. Number 8 is the jejunum. Number 9 is the descending colon. Number 10 is the ileum. Number 11 is the ascending colon. Number 12 is the cecum. Number 13 is the appendix, and number 14 is the sigmoid colon. In this image of the abdomen divided into 4 quadrants, the obvious surface landmark used as the intersection point of the longitudinal and transverse reference lines is the belly button. Directly deep to the belly button is the stomach, small intestine, large intestine, and pancreas. As shown in this image, the major organ found mostly in the upper right quadrant is the liver, and the major organ found mostly in the upper left quadrant is the stomach. The 3 organs that are in contact with the inferior surface of the diaphragm are the stomach, liver, and spleen, as seen in this image. The organs that are closest to the pubic bone are the lower organs, such as the rectum, colon, cecum, and appendix. Next, we will be looking at a coronal cross-section of the digestive system. As seen in this image, the blue is indicating the coronal plane of the body. This means where if you would cut the body in half, the front section would be one half and the back section would be the other half. The cross-section is just a small sliver of one of these halves. In this cross-section, the liver can be easily seen as a large red triangle. The large intestine is a small translucent circle right below the liver. The stomach is also a larger translucent circle to the right of the liver. The spleen is under the stomach and is a small red dot. The small intestine is multiple small circles in the middle of the abdomen. These organs in the cross-section do not appear as they normally would because this is just a small sliver of the abdomen. Next, we will be looking at a sagittal cross-section of the female body. If we look at this image again, we can see that the sagittal plane cuts the body into right and left halves. In this sagittal cross-section, there are 4 visible organs. The liver is a large red circle in the upper part of the abdomen. The small intestine are multiple circles in the lower part of the abdomen. The large intestine is a very small translucent U shape towards the back of this image. The urinary bladder is toward the bottom of this image and is a translucent circle. Next, we will be looking at a sagittal cross-section of the male abdomen and see how it differs from the female cross-section. As shown in the labeled cross-section, the large intestine on the male looks to be a lot higher than in the female cross-section. The bladder on the male cross-section appears to be a lot larger than the female's. The small intestine looks relatively similar on the female and male cross-sections, and the liver also looks relatively similar on the male and female cross-sections. Next, we will look at the location and structure of the kidneys. As you can see in this image, the kidneys are the 2 light brown bean-shaped organs in the abdominal pelvic cavity. As you can see, the left kidney is higher than the right kidney. This is because the liver is on the right side of the body and takes up more space than on the left side where the stomach is located. Next, we will observe a transverse cross-section of the abdomen as indicated by the green plane in this image. The transverse plane cuts the body into a top and bottom half, with the cross-section being a sliver of one of these halves. It is helpful to think of this cross-section as a person is lying on their back on a table in front of you and you are standing at the patient's feet looking up towards their head. To identify which side of the cross-section is anterior, we can notice the abdominal muscles located near the top of this image, as they look like 2 lumps on the body covered by a layer of fat. A structure that is posterior in this image is the vertebral disc. The structure labeled A in this image is the large intestine, as it is a large, wide-open space. The structure labeled B is the small intestine, as it can be seen by the many folds that the small intestine has. Structures C and D are the kidneys. They are different sizes in this image because, again, the left kidney is higher in the body than the right kidney. In this cross-section, there are two major blood vessels labeled. Blood vessel A is the abdominal aorta and blood vessel B is the inferior vena cava. I can tell that the inferior vena cava is B because the aorta wall is thicker and muscular. The inferior vena cava has thinner walls. This image is a transverse cross-section cut higher up in the abdominal cavity. The structure labeled A is the liver because it is a large red structure taking up a large portion of the abdominal cavity. The structure labeled B is the kidney because it is located posterior to the stomach and the pancreas. The structure labeled C is the spleen because it is under the stomach. The structure labeled D is the stomach. It is a medium-sized translucent structure that is next to the liver. The structure labeled E is the pancreas because it is located posterior to the stomach. And the structure labeled F is the gallbladder because it is located under the liver. In these three images, the lesser omentum is labeled A because it is a structure that extends from the bottom of the liver to the stomach. The structure labeled B is the greater omentum because it is a structure that hangs down from the stomach. The structure labeled C is the mesentery proper because it is a structure that attaches the lower sections of the small intestine to the abdominal wall. Based on this image, we can expect to find the superior mesenteric artery, the superior mesenteric vein, and the vagus nerve in the mesentery proper because the mesentery proper is a tissue that connects the parts of the small intestine to the body walls, and these three vessels run through the mesentery proper to supply blood and nutrients to the abdominal organs.
Lady